it's Coach Tori, and this is Raising Runners. We will be talking about running, mental health, youth sport burnout, specialization in sports, motivation, encouragement, coaching, parenting, sleep, nutrition, really anything that you can think of that we as parents or coaches or just runners can do to help our young athletes. Today, we get to talk to an amazing father-daughter duo, Buck and Krissy. We talk about their amazing program, Student ACES, that they founded in 2013. Super cool information, really awesome program. It's focused on athletics, community, and education. They really just dive into what it's all about, their mission, their values, their vision for everything. So really a great lesson to hear more about that. Anybody who is in Florida or around that area, this is where you will find this program. But again, lots of really important information for coaches that you can take away, for things to add when working with your athletes also. So before we get into that interview though, just real quickly, I wanted to talk about running safety. All of us runners know about one of the most recent incidents about an abduction that ended in the death of a runner. So we will be recording an episode in the near future, talking hopefully with a self-defense professional or someone of that nature about safety when running alone. But things just to remind everybody in the running community, please, please, please find a local running group or a friend or someone so that you are not running alone. I am someone who often runs alone just due to circumstance. So really trying to make an effort to find people to run with. Don't post your locations on social media. We see that so often with people posting their Strava routes. Maybe trying not to do that. If you have these smartwatches, most of them have some kind of notification system that you can notify your emergency contact person in case of a fall. I believe Life 360 is another app that you can get that tracks your location, sharing your location with loved ones, telling people when you're leaving, when they should expect you back, all kinds of things. I know lots of people right now are looking for some kind of tangible protective item. Amazon has a great list of all the different things you can buy. So I'm sure there's lots of reviews there. Look for your local self-defense classes. I know lots of martial arts studios, Brazilian jiu-jitsu places. There's also independent people who host self-defense specifically for runners. So look for all those things. Check on our social medias because I'm going to be trying to compile a list of different resources for people because I know everyone has a different approach they want to take for their safety, which I totally understand. So again, just everyone please be safe out there when you're running, hiking, walking, doing anything. But check back soon because we will have an episode going into all of the proactive and reactive strategies for safety when running. So if you guys just want to start by introducing yourselves, we're obviously going to get into all the really cool things you're doing now, but kind of talk about you as athletes and kind of how you evolved that way. And that will probably kind of just naturally lead us into everything going on now.
Well, go ahead, Chris. Go for it.
Krissy Webb. I am the executive director and co-founder of Student ACES with my father, Buck Martinez, who's next to me. As an athlete, when I was growing up, kids played so many different sports. So I played every sport from tennis, softball, basketball, flag football, you name it. And then, moving on to college, I loved intramurals. So I played all kinds of different intramurals. But again, now kids have to decide at such a young age one sport. So I played every sport. I love sports. I'm one of 3 girls. All of us are athletes, still an athlete, always an athlete, in whatever capacity that looks like. So I enjoy running, working out, boxing, all different kinds of sports. And then I coach my daughter's 10 and under travel softball team. So that's a little bit about athletic background, I guess.
Well, good morning. Sounds like a Marine, right? Once a Marine, always a Marine. So I'm Buck. Yeah, proud to be the dad here. So sports has always been a big part of our family. I had a chance to play all through little leagues, all the different sports like Krissy. And I had a chance to play both high school and collegiate baseball. So that was, the opportunity, and then the dream came to an end through a shoulder injury. But, we've always been involved in coaching youth sports, and currently I'm coaching both the travel softball as well as my grandson's travel baseball. So, but through that, it's just mentoring a lot of kids, working with a lot of kids at both the high school level, youth level, and even collegiate level. We work with a lot of university kids today. So very blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so nice that you had mentioned, Krissy, that like kids have to specialize so early, but being able to do so many different kinds of sports growing up, like you get exposed to so many different things, your body is able to do different sports, different skills. So, it's really nice to hear people talking about that too, because it is unfortunate the way things are sometimes now that kids are so busy, or, your travel team is like 9 months out of the year. Right. So it is a busy time for kids. So you both coach now, but because we'll probably get into that a little bit, but since you mentioned student ACES, can you kind of give us the rundown of what that is, like inspiration to start it, who's it for, and kind of just get into that for us?
Sure.
Go for it.
So student ACES, the genesis of student ACES came from a conversation in a U-Haul. My dad and I were driving from the west coast of Florida to the east coast of Florida. I have twin daughters. They're 10 now. So they were just born. And the conversation was, who are going to be the role models and the leaders for my daughters? And what does that look like? And what are they doing in the schools to prepare these kids to be those role models for my daughters? And my dad and I were talking about this. How many years had he been with FPL? Like 30 years 30, at that time? 30 years with the power company. I said, what's next? What's next in life? And, we were throwing some ideas around. And then what stemmed from that was, are they teaching those core values, that character, and leadership in the high schools? And so we started with a pilot program to teach those core values and that character education with 32 students. And from there, we've developed multiple different programs. We have one after school program, one physical location, and different programs that are to inspire and develop the next generation of leaders through, of honor, character, and integrity. So there's a lot more to that, but that's the genesis of student ACES. Dad, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, bottom line is we always felt that if you could get to the student athletes, especially at the high school level, and probably about 75 to 80% of the kids play some kind of sport. And if you can truly inspire them to be, what we would call role models, character, leadership, those kind of things, then you could really permeate the schools, and then you could truly try to change that whole culture in the school. And we've got schools just like everywhere else that are known for good stuff, and we've got schools that are known for really bad stuff. And what we saw was in one of these schools where you had a lot of, let's just say, drugs and gang violence and all that, some of the kids that were in the program were able, believe it or not, to change the culture of that school. And that, unfortunately, wasn't sustainable, because as they graduated, then it was, that gap got filled by other stuff. But if you can keep that, relationship going, and, problem with high schools today is that a lot of the teachers / administrators leave so often that it's tough to keep that sustainability going. But those that truly believe in it take it from school to school, where others just, let that vacuum get filled by bad stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, that is like a tall task to be able to change the culture of like the youth that we have here, right? But that is so awesome. Can you tell us, I think you may have said it in your explanation, but what the core values you're trying to teach are, and then kind of where you came up with them? Because I know a lot of us can probably think of what we think should all be core values, but I know some people have different ideas. So if you can tell us like how you came up with them and then what those are.
So a lot of what we teach is character, right? So we, even though it started as a leadership program and we still have a lot of components of leadership, what we felt was that statistically, leadership, about 10% of the population will ultimately migrate to leadership, right? Because it's a very lonely place. It requires a lot of, tough decisions, not popularity. But character, we felt that 100% of people could aspire to. So we came up with some of those core values. For we always tell the kids that everybody can demand respect, but you got to command it. So in a world where everybody thinks that they need to be respected, the reality is nobody needs to respect you. You got to earn it. So commanding respect and obviously earning trust. And we talk a lot about, trust is something that could take you a whole lifetime to earn it, but you can lose it in a nanosecond and never get it back. We talk about attitude and a winning attitude. And the way we define attitude is, that energy that you bring, that mindset that basically says that life happens. So, 10% is what happens and 90% is how you respond to it. But attitude is that one thing that we tell kids is the only thing that they can control in life. So how, the lens by which you see, life. We talk about work ethic, and we coined a phrase, which is really cool. So some of our alumni still use it's called work ethic second to none. So you got to be able to outwork your competition. And, we define the competition by basically everyone that's inspired or aspiring to take your job. So whether it's, kids all over the world that want to have the American dream and come over here, and whether it's playing sports or aspiring to the job you want, but it's ultimately you got to be able to outwork those folks. And then we talk about morality and ethics. And then obviously we talk a lot about, especially in the leadership role, is the higher you go up the totem pole, the more you got to be willing to sacrifice. So if you have a small dot, that's you. And then a big dot, it's the rest of everybody on your team. And then as you go up that totem pole, you become less and less relevant, but your teammates become more and more relevant. And that's the whole sacrifice component of leadership.
Now, what is the format that you're mostly delivering the instruction in? Because I'm like picturing what I try to do with our run club and trying to give them instruction, and that doesn't always. Sometimes it's just like we're out at the park, everyone's running around, So just what does that format look like?
We've got different venues, but ultimately what we realize is that these kids spend a whole day, already getting lectured, whether they're getting lectured at home, in the classroom, and everything that we've tried to really drive into the curriculum is interaction. So whether it's the technology of the social media, which basically keeps them from having that social interaction. We do a lot of case studies with them where they have to solve the problem. So it's critical thinking. And then we also do a lot of role playing and skits where they truly come out of their shell. And that's where you see these kids truly blossom, is that they act out. So we give them very little direction, but we give them very tough case studies, like real life, changing case studies. So we've got venues that, allow us to meet with the same kids over the school year, like 6-7 times. We have other workshops where we go directly to the school and work with teams that are dealing with different issues like team chemistry or entitlement or work ethic, whatever that may be. We also do venues where we bring in kids that are so-called leaders / captains of their sports. So if you think of the concept of leaders among leaders, and you see really those that rise to the top. So it's a day of what are the roles and responsibilities of captain, what are the traits and qualities that you should emulate, what is the image that a captain should exude, and then put them through a lot of team building, case studies, those kind of things. And what you realize is that a lot of these kids don't even know why they were selected captain. Nobody told them what the criteria was. Nobody told them what their roles and responsibilities. So it's like, am I supposed to be a cheerleader? Am I supposed, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So it kind of lays it all out. And we give them a book that's called The Captain's Playbook that kind of helps them navigate through that.
And I think to add to that point of what does that look like and what are the venues, for student ACES, one of the important things for the organization when we started, and what we call our flagship program, where students meet once a month from different schools, was the opportunity to meet athletes from other schools that you compete against on the field, but now you're working together to solve these cases or be in team building exercises or whatever the case may be. So you have kids from private school, public school, you know, again, these are kids that have played against each other, but they've never seen themselves as teammates off the field as well. So that, you know, for us was one of the most important parts when starting, you know, the flagship program and the captain summits. Is now it's so powerful when you have captains of different sports from different schools in one setting working to solve these problems that are much bigger than them, from different backgrounds, cultures, ethnicities, all of the above. That is one of the coolest parts of Student ACES.
Yeah, and it's funny for them because they might be on a team with one of their most fiercest competitors, right? So it's like, wait a second, you know, so it's like we tell them the ultimate respect you can pay this person is when you're on the field, you want to knock their block off, right? You want to give them everything you got. But outside of that, they're a human being, they're a leader, and you guys might end up being together on a collegiate team. You might be, we've got individuals that, you know, started businesses together. And, you know, one of the guys that was one of our advisors was an Army Ranger, and he was a quarterback at Army. And the guy he was playing against for Navy was a linebacker, and the linebacker took his knee out in the Army Navy game. And then they went on to serve, one as a Ranger, one as a SEAL on the same unit. So it's really cool. They actually wrote a book about it. So, you know, you never know where life takes you. And
networks are so important.
so for these kids, it's really neat to see that that person that they are taught to despise on the field might be really a great human being that you want on your team.
And how do the kids get enrolled in your program? Are they recommended to you, or how do they find you?
So when we first started the pilot program and then the first full year of programming, they were recommended by the schools. From there, the next several years, some of the students were nominating other students. So, you know, it wasn't popularity contest. It didn't turn out that way, which, you know, a lot of people would say, oh, did they nominate their friend? No, it wasn't like that. It was who was the best for that, you know, for the program. And then when COVID happened, now we're back again. We're going into school, you know, we're having the kids come together in one setting again. Last year, we had to go to the different schools. So the administration, we're back to where that was of administration nominating. But what happens, you know, is you find those champions on the campus, right? So it could be an assistant coach that, you know, notices those. It's not always the, you know, the principal, or there's people in the schools that become champions for nominating these kids, and then kids end up nominating kids as well.
That is so cool. It's nice to see like kids being empowered to like bring their peers into something that's awesome. No, I really like that. And so you guys are both coaches. How do you bring all the things that you like learned through what you're doing, but also like all the values and everything from your program into your coaching?
Well, so the age group that my daughters are right now, as I mentioned, is 10 and under. And for the last couple of years, you know, in working with high school students, we started to see those same behaviors that we're working with as high school students on in youth sports. So it became very, very important as a mom, as a coach, and as the executive director of this organization to really dive into that and see how we can work with these, you know, these young people that we're coaching and introduce those key values. Last year, I was coaching part of an organization with a city, and we, instead of putting their last names on their back, we put those core character values that we thought best suited their leadership on the field. So instead of saying, for example, my last name's Webb, my twin girls, one said fierce, one said integrity. So you introduce those character values. We slowly started introducing, you know, practice, because they don't know how to pull it out, what they're doing on the field. They don't know how to define it, right? They use it. They have to be a team. They have to have, you know, but they don't know how to define it, especially at any age, really, you see it. And so then fast forward to this fall, we started, it's called ACES Elite. So it's going in that direction of youth sports and what youth sports programs can instill in to these young people to prepare them for what we're working with in high school, you know, to introduce them to these character values and to, youth sports has gotten so, what's the best word for this? So out of control in the nicest way possible. Yeah, challenging in terms of what, these are still kids. Kids need love, they need support, they need encouragement. Again, going back to, being put in a box where you have to define, yourself as one sport, and you define yourself as the sport. So you're working against all of these different things, social media, I would say some parents think that college recruiters are at 10 and under travel sports. So you're working to instill that competitiveness into these kids, but also, developing them as good people at such a young age. And if you are that one person that has them for 4 hours a week at practice, then you can be that role model and that leader for them to, so if you're leading with those character values, you bring that supportive team of coaches to that, then, such a small percentage gets college scholarships, that the best you could do is keep them out of trouble, that they're good people, and they build a network of friends that they can contact throughout, the county.
So, each of these kids have a dream, right? So the dream is like, okay, in most cases, like with the boys, it's like they want to be an MLB guy, Major League Baseball player. So the concept for us has to be, how do you turn those dreams into some kind of reality? But the reality means that the dream isn't something that you just wake up one day and say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be X, Y, Z. The dream comes with all the core values that ACE is trying to promote. So like when we talk about leadership, say Cal Ripken, I never use an example of him on the field other than the fact the man never missed a game, right? I mean, you think about it, no flu, no back issues, no hamstrings. But what was amazing about the guy was that he would never leave the ball field until every kid that wanted an autograph would get an autograph. So it's a nice story for the kids, but then you follow that by saying, let me tell you why he did that. These are the kids that paid his salary. So the respect he gave back to the customer was, hey, I'm honoring you by doing this for you. Where a lot of these young men, women today, they just blow right by the kid and don't even give him the time of day. So it shouldn't be the anomaly that says, oh my gosh, this guy actually took the time to give me an autograph. It should be the norm. But we've lost that. And, a lot of these agents don't even allow the players to take a photo with a kid or sign an autograph. It's really bad. So if you can help them translate that dream into some form of reality, I think that'd be great. And then, the other piece of ACE Elite, which is also part of our student ACES program, is how do you optimize what I would call the person as opposed to the athlete. So the person has to be, hey, I want this person to be a great dad one day, a great mom, a husband, a wife. I want them to be someone who gives back to the community, is involved in civic activities, as opposed to, I played high school football one year. That was great. It's gotta be a lot more than that. And the way we do that, it's, we always ask the kids, who are you? So it's like, sports is what you do, not who you are. And that's a fascinating thing because they've always been taught, I'm a football player, I'm a baseball player, I'm a softball player, as opposed to, no, I'm so-and-so, and I'm made out of these core values. I'm a generous person, loving person, compassionate person. And by the way, I spent so many hours a day playing some kind of a sport. So it's a big difference.
Yeah. And I would say, the last part of that as well is, you start to see some of those trends that you see in pro sports and college athletics of, it's all about me. So I'm going to, leave this team and I'm going to go to a different team. You start to see that in youth sports. And what I think the biggest thing that I've realized is the most successful teams are those teams that have stayed together and worked really hard to achieve those goals. Right. So you start to see that in high school. And Nick Saban was one of the ones who said that he doesn't recruit any high school football players that have left more than one or two schools. So you start to see that in youth sports. And I think everybody gets so wrapped up in listening to the first thing they see on social media or they hear another parent say, instead of just saying, what, this is your team. This is what, so there's so many different things that you see, as examples with the people that these kids follow on social media, like my dad said in the news, instead of saying, you know what, this is what, you know, this kid contributes to this team.
Yeah, take pride in what you bring to the team, as opposed to the only way I can succeed is if I bring so and so and so to my team. So, you know, and that's the challenge today with the portal and the free agency, is that we've lost that whole concept of loyalty and commitment. So it's, let me see what I can get for myself. And it's hard, because as coaches trying to coach a kid that, you know, he's not committed past the first season, that's it, is challenging. So how much time and effort do you put into it? And coaches used to, you know, we talk a lot about the different leadership styles, and, you know, one of the leadership styles that can be very effective for sports is what we call a coaching mentality, which is you become a lot more involved with the kid than the actual sport. So you get to know about the individual, you take an interest in their personal life. But if you're a college coach and you think those kids are going to be a one and out, you spend a lot less time with that, because you're like, okay, how much time and effort am I going to put into that if I know they're going to leave after a year? So it's challenging. I mean, society has changed the rules a lot, so it's tough for coaches too.
I love how knowledgeable you guys seem to be about everything going on. Like, I feel like I'm not that connected to the way that we're recruiting and different professional athletes and the way social media is affecting everything. So it's so nice to hear. Like, I don't even remember the question I had asked that got us to this point, but I'm like, you had so much information, but also like made it really applicable and real. So that is,
how do we bring things to the actual sport? That was your question.
There you go.
We kind of rambled on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a rambler too, but yours was at least relevant and informational, so that was good. If you had to give advice, and it's not, I mean, through your answer, I think there was like lots of great information that coaches could pull out of there, but if you had to give like one place to start for coaches on how to help develop their athletes as people, as characters, you know, like the who you are that you were just referring to. And I'm sure it's different for different age levels. So if you wanted to kind of touch on the different ages, I know this wasn't a question I said I was going to ask, but it kind of just popped into my head. But do you have like one piece of advice for coaches to start with?
My advice would be do it for the right reasons. So take an interest in the kid and why you want to coach, as opposed to because you want to be relevant or you want to coach your kid or whatever it may be. Too many coaches today, they get hung up on, oh my God, if I don't win, or, you know, how do I look in society? Especially, you know, those individuals that think it's about them, not the kid. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, now people think I'm a bad coach. I'd rather go 0-10 and develop my kids and have them prepared to compete at the next level, because I've developed them mentally, emotionally, socially, and all that. And by the same token, they're developing their physicality, their skills. Where too many guys are hung up on, and gals, I mean, it's both. They're hung up on winning at 8 or 10. And don't get me wrong, we want to win too, but it's never at the expense of developing the kid. So do it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is to know what drives and motivates each kid, and knowing that kid, talking to that kid, understanding that kid, and then using that to build them up, right? So confidence is key in each kid, from, you know, 10 and under to, you know, college and then adults, is take the time. Everybody gets so busy, you know, nowadays, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else. But really sit down with a kid and understand what drives them and what motivates them. And then from there, if you know each kid on your team, then you can really build something special, because you're using you're applying those same core values that you're teaching those kids, because you're showing them respect and you're showing them, you know, that they can trust you, and you're sacrificing your time for them. So be that example, get to know your kids, and then, you know, cheer them on. It's not always their fault too that their parents, you know, have put them in certain situations. So at every capacity, know that, you know, they know that they have somebody in their corner.
You know, one of the things too is that a lot of these kids don't have either a father at home, or their mom might be working some ridiculous hours. So the coach is the one that has the opportunity to fill a huge gap. So take the opportunity to make it something worthwhile for the kid. You are that role model potentially. You are the one they're going to have huge influence in their life. And I remember in a very short time, I had a chance to talk to Bobby Bowden, who was considered, one of those guys that really took the time and the interest in the kids. And he said when he started coaching, about 20% of his kids didn't have a father figure in their life. And when he left coaching, it was 80% plus. So he became the default dad. So if you're going to be honored with that title, do something about it and take the time and make sure you're present in those kids' lives and make an impact, as opposed to turning your back on them because they made me not the best player or they didn't make the right play. But each player, regardless of their athletic talent, once you decide to coach that further, you owe it to them to give them the best experience you possibly can.
And that also, just to that point, that also transitions into mentors, right? So a lot of people like to use the word mentorship. So whether it's coaching, because you're always coaching in every capacity, especially for us, whether it's on the field or whether it's, these kids at every level through life, it's always coaching. So yeah, mentoring, that's a big word right now. When you're a mentor or a coach, whatever you say you're going to do, you cannot let kids down. So your word is everything, especially to kids that are looking up to you. So whatever that we've learned, that over the year, people would say, yeah, I'll grab lunch or whatever. Adults say it all the time, but when you're talking to a kid, they're going to look forward to that time where they have lunch with you until you do. You know what I'm saying? They don't forget. So whatever you say, your word is everything with kids. So whatever you say, you're going to do whatever you promise, and you need to deliver on that promise.
Your word is your bond.
That was some great advice for coaches and I think parents and pretty much anybody who works with kids, right? On that note, then, what I saw on your website, there was a couple books as resources, but are there any other ways that, because obviously you guys have a central location, you're in certain schools, but how can people who aren't around you benefit from, all the information that you have? Is there some other resources, or is there virtual things, or do we all just have to move to Florida, or what? How can we benefit if we're not?
Geez, our traffic is terrible.
Yeah.
So yes, all the books are on Amazon. You can purchase any of the books, and that is really what drives our curriculum. So again, to the point of, not a lot of lecture, not a lot of PowerPoint, everything is interactive examples. It's all pulled from the curriculum. And then again, we're very accessible. So if there's a coach out there that, wants to pick up one of our brains, the goal is that this information gets out to as many people as possible. And if we can, teach or learn from anybody else, that's always the goal. So we're always happy to help anybody else.
Yeah, and our books, our curriculum is all from the heart. We've written everything based on our experiences and based on what we think is helpful to these kids as well as their parents.
Yeah, and I saw the books and I was like, I have to check them out, and I haven't gotten a chance to yet because I'm always looking, obviously, because I'm out here interviewing people all the time, right? But I'm always looking for more information, and it seems like the program you guys have aligns so much with what I'm trying to make my youth running club more like. So I definitely will be getting some of that stuff from you guys. And I will make sure I link your website on there so people know how to find you. And then I can also link the Amazon links for the books, so it's easier for people to find. But is there anything else that I didn't ask? Because I feel like you guys gave me so much information. I'm like, all of my questions, I think you already answered. But is there anything you guys have?
The other thing I would say too is our YouTube has a lot of different information and actually pictures and video of our classes and workshops and everything. So you'll see like the team building activities, you'll see the kids in action. So that's another good visual resource as well as our YouTube page.
I would say that too many people go into whether it's teaching, coaching with a mentality, I'm going to develop this kid or I'm going to develop that. And I think the advice would be your job is to inspire them to do that. So you can't develop someone who doesn't want to be developed. You got to inspire them to do it. So inspire and develop. So, because if you can inspire a kid, they're going to do anything. And, it becomes from them as opposed to from you. So that's the powerful thing I think each coach should sign up for.
Yeah. And I was going to say, in all of your answers, it seems like you keep referring back to like leading by example, being a role model, all those things. So yeah, definitely inspiring people. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated learning more about what you do and why you do it. So this has been so awesome.
Come down to Florida.
I might. I have family in Florida. So next time I visit, I may have to come check out everything you have going on.
Yeah. And anything that we can do to help too, we're always willing to help. So
thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you to Buck and Krissy one more time, because they did such an amazing job explaining their program, but also just their program sounds so cool. Can't wait to check it out. Like I mentioned, I have family in Florida. Shout out to my sister Alex. So I will have to go see what their stuff is all about next time I'm down there. Really cool everything they're doing for their local community. There are some books on their website. They have a YouTube channel, so make sure you check all those things out. I will have the links in the show notes. So hopefully you enjoyed that interview. Thank you for tuning into Raising Runners. New episodes every Tuesday, and we are always looking to talk to people about running, mental health, or anything along the spectrum that can help our young athletes, or just talking to runners or parents and coaches of our young runners as well. Hopefully you find our resources helpful. If you have questions, comments, or anything else, feel free to email me at marikeyrunclub@gmail.com.